Welcome back. All right, today I'm going to be talking about maturity crisis, why responsibility builds that wisdom. And what do I mean by that? It's not that there is a lack of intelligence, not a lack of information, and it's not even a lack of resources. It's a lack of maturity. And I'm going to explain this because I find this, it's important to each individual, each human being, to understand there is a psyche to the development of maturing, and then that maturing, how do you get to the wisdom? Because, okay, we can be mature, pay our bills, abide by the laws when you're driving, blah, 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 right? But the actual, how do you get to the wisdom? And that is what I'm going to be discussing today. And when I say maturity, I'm not talking about age. Because you can be mature even as a young child, a teenager, 20s, 30s, and have tons of wisdom. I've seen that before. What I'm really talking about is something very specific, and I'm talking about maturity in the ability to take the responsibility for your actions and your words, even when it stings, when you just blurp out and then you don't own it. That's what I call it. You don't own it, and you got to own it. So even when the ego wants to run, or when it would be easier to pretend you didn't do what you did, or you didn't say what you said. Because the truth is, wisdom is not built through theories. Wisdom is built through ownership. And that's why I believe that maturity is the foundation of a stable human being. I talk a lot about being stable, and I have a story behind all of it, and one day I'm going to do a video on it, because I'm not going to talk about it now, but there is a reason why I talk a lot about it. And I've talked about also the right and left hemisphere and how that must be balanced in order to be stable. Like, I lean more towards my design, creativity, and I lack the other side that, has to do with like money and, bills, like all that kind of stuff. And so it's important to try, because you have to define something. You have to know when you are not good at some things, or where you lack other things, right? That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's important to know it, right? So then you can either hire somebody that has those things you don't have, or learn more about it and try to conquer it, if that's something you want to do. So it really starts here, and on speaking about the stableness of an individual. A stable person is not someone who never makes a mistake. We make mistakes. We're human. A stable person is someone who can look at themselves and say this: I was wrong. I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have done that. and maybe even say, I'm sorry. That right there would be maturity. And it's rare. But the thing is if you do it one time, I can guarantee you, yes, it's going to sting, but it'll give you this feeling on the inside that, you know what, I'm glad that I said I was sorry to that person because I was out of control. And it does something, and you can feel that maturity, but it's something else. It's like it is the wisdom part. So, because most people don't want to face themselves, we get so used to ignoring, oh, I'll deal with that later. Oh, you know, I said that to that person, but when I see him next, I'll say something. But the most important thing is to, if you're aware, to immediately, you know, if it's a person, correct it. Correct the course. That's what I call it. Immediately. I've gotten in a really good habit of doing this. And I mean, I'm not, you know, like I've made mistakes, but I have been good about, if I say something or I do something that I know that's not, you know, that's not cool. I go right away. I say, hey, wait a minute. You know, I just said this and I didn't mean it like this. And what I really want to say first is that I'm sorry and this is what I want to say now. Something along that line. And because you want to face the world, right? And you want to face other people and meet them at that high quality level of maturity. And when you meet them there is something that happens that I don't know what to call it, because I was talking to somebody about this recently and we were speaking about this. And there is, let's call it a spark. Like there's some really good feeling of taking responsibility for it, right? And you want to correct everyone else, you know, that's kind of the thing, you know, that people like to do. But you got to correct yourself. But the hardest thing a human being can do is to look in the mirror and internally face their own psyche. We have to do it. It's time. There will be a time that you will have to face that. It's better to face it now. And you want to face thoughts, feelings, emotions, reactions. That's a big one. Impulses, your shadows, patterns, and excuses. When you're in a marriage, I think this is like something you have to do, because you don't want to control your partner. You're not there to control them like an animal. You're there to participate in a mature relationship. And I think, personally, myself, I think the best way to get to it is to conquer these that I just mentioned. And the reason it's hard is because it threatens your identity, or maybe even threatens their identity. And they might pull away when you want to discuss it, but that's all right. You dive in anyways. And what it does too, it may threaten the story you tell yourself about who you are. And you have to face it. I think we're in the time now, I do feel this, that we all need to face our being and face it head on. And when you do that, it you just get this light, and you feel, you know you're doing the right thing, even if it's a little painful. Or like I said at the beginning, it's a sting. That's how I look at it. It's kind of like a bee sting, like, you know? But without that internal honesty, you don't mature. And not only do you not mature, but you don't become wise. Because that hampers you by not taking responsibility to become mature and to face the issues with other people. We're never getting out of not facing other humans around us. And I'm not telling you to go and have fights with people. I'm saying to, you know, your inner crowd, your inner people around you. Because if you don't really know somebody and they say something stupid, that you don't have to, you know, you walk away, right? But the moment that really reveals everything is this. There's a moment that reveals a person's maturity level faster than anything. And I have found this. And it's not when life is easy. It's never when it's easy, right? Because everybody's like, yeah, you know, everybody's happy. It's like when just something comes out of the blue. And it's when they've done something wrong. And the other way around too. Maybe you've done something wrong. And when they've said something that crossed the line, and you're like, good God, what in the world? And then right at that instance, when they've said something that crossed that line, when they've threatened someone, maybe even threatened you, and when they've insulted someone or insulted you, or they've lied, and when they've acted out of anger, jealousy, fear, and ego, this is the time to step up, take the responsibility. The first thing you want to do is just calmly approach it and mention it. And if it's being done to you, you want to say, wait a minute, and repeat what they said to them, and then say, I'm not going to accept that, and I want you to know that now. And you have to let them know that, because the moment is like a fork in the road. If you let that go and you let it pass, it's going to happen again and again and again and again. And if you care about the friendship or the relationship or the business partner or the company you work for, there are those moments of the fork in the road. And that's part of becoming mature, is to confront. And this is why it's important to teach your children this now, and to actually walk them through. Like, you see them do something and they try to skate around. You say, hold on, kids. Come on over here. We're going to talk about this. And then you let them know why they have to take responsibility. And because the mature path sounds like this, and this is what you want to, and if you have to say it to an adult, I hate to say this, if you have to speak like this to an adult, maybe even your mate, then you do it. Or, even your children. You can, maybe it's an instance like this. I did it, or you did this. I'm going to say I to keep it simple. It was wrong. I'm sorry. I own it. I think that one's a good one. I own that. And I'm sorry. And I will repair it. And right away, it diffuses, like the frequency, the atmosphere, everything. Now it could, step it up a few notches, but normally what I have found that it brings it down, and people kind of, their shoulders relax and what have you. But the immature path sounds like this. That's not what I meant. Oh God, mainly people say that. That's what I have found. And it's like, what are you going to say? Well, then what did you mean? Right? And you took it wrong. That's another thing that is said. You took it wrong. They don't want to face the responsibility. Or you're too sensitive. I get that one a lot because I'm kind of, the way that I am, I tend to be too nice, and I give everybody the benefit of the doubt too many times. And so they take that kindness as weakness. So like my husband used to tell me that. You're too nice and you always give the people the benefit of the doubt. Why do you do that? I said, because I believe that they can rise above it. And he said, they won't rise above it unless you point it out. And you explain, because it seems like you let it go and then they do it again. And being with my husband for 23 years, he saw that pattern in me. You're too nice. And I tend to be too nice. But then what happens is when I've had enough, I blow up. And you don't want to do that. And, they say this too. I wouldn't have said it if you didn't do what you did. That's another thing. And then all of that right there, you take that pause and then you reverse the course, and in a calm way, you have to confront and take the responsibility. And then they also say, actually, you're the one attacking me right now. And they could have twisted that, because maybe you're just asking an honest question and you didn't mean any harm. You're just asking a question on something. And they felt that, you were maybe even like questioning their ability to choose a client or a coworker or something like that. So, and this is where humanity really gets stuck, because I believe in relationship, workplaces, friendship, this is the main problem right here. And if you want to correct this and do the right thing, not get stuck, you have to take the responsibility. Right? Someone has to step up and take the responsibility. And I have found, if you understand this, what I'm saying, and you can see this and you can acknowledge it, you'll be the one to always step up, which is fine. You don't have to play that game either. I have to be the responsible one. I'm the responsible one. No, you don't have to be that way either. You're not trying to prove that you're better. What you're doing is you're actually, a lot of the times with friendship, you're saving the friendship. Because you love the person, or you're saving the relationship, or you're saving the employee so that they snap out of it and that they can acknowledge and become aware of what just took place. So, because immature people don't want to take responsibility. That doesn't mean they're stupid or they're not intelligent. It's something that was taught. So they want to avoid the responsibility while still keeping a clean self-image. So this is why they say what they say. Okay? And you too, if you're doing it, right? So they do something like this. They rewrite reality. And they tell a story that they saw that happened, which is 100% false. And that reality gets rewritten. And what happens is it's a victim flip. And they somehow turn themselves into a victim. And it works. And this is one of the most common behaviors that I see in adults who are not mature. And they do something wrong, but instead of owning it, they make themselves the victim. And if you're listening to this, please make comments, because tell me like a blurb, yes, that happened because of this happened to me, or, I did this or whatever, because I've been keeping like a lot of like statistics because of my book, and I'm writing this in my book and through my life. And I have been keeping a diary since I have been 9 years old. Now, yes, there's like a week I might miss, and then I have to like go back and I have to think and write it all down. But I have piles and piles of diaries that I have been keeping since I was 9. And my sister gave me a diary after my communion, and I started there. That's when I started. And I would write in it every day. I thought it was so, wonderful and everything. And I just kept it up. And so I went back, and this was after my husband and I split, because I had a lot of time and I was crying a lot and looking over my life and stuff. And so I wanted to go back, because I kept on I want to write a book. I've done, so much, not that, I done so much that, I have to, no, I've studied a lot, and I've looked at human behavior and psyches, and I think I have a lot to say. So I wanted to put it down in a book, but I said, before I do this, I'm going to go through my diaries, and I'm still going through my diaries. And it is something that is so incredible, but we start at a very young age. This is, I believe, we're in some ways taught, because the people around us. My dad didn't take a lot of responsibility. And I know, my brother, we were on the phone, 3 weeks ago and stuff. And he was talking about how our father never took responsibility. I didn't know that my brother didn't like my father so much, And, really, I'm not going to say what he said, but, I was like, God, really? I didn't even know that. And he talked about the responsibility. And he said, he always felt bad for my mother. So, and he did flip it into the victim. Now, there's something too you have to be careful about, because, this is taught as a child. And if the child's going to grow up and become an adult, right? And they will carry this pattern on and continue it into maybe till the day they die. So it's when this is one thing that I really want to stress out, because this is a victim flip, but it's when someone harms another person and then somehow turns it around like the person they harmed is the problem. Now, there are things that happen to people, so I want to differentiate that, but this is about the person who actually flips it and switches it, and then they make themselves the ones that were actually harmed when really it was the other way around, because they can't face what they did and take the responsibility of it. And many, many adults do this. And like I said, if someone threatens you, insults you, manipulates you, and then when you respond, they make it about themselves, that is not maturity. That is emotional avoidance. And that's something in them deep that probably they never took responsibility for. And that emotional avoidance becomes their identity. And this, I like to say this because I don't really like pop psychology, and this is what's happening now. I see a lot of psychologists. I don't even know if they even are true psychologists. Some of the things that I've read, what they say is completely, let's just say this, they should have their license taken away. And it's wrong. Because, your psychologists have to be responsible. They do. That's the whole main, they're helping another human being, their psyche, their life. So, and here's what happens. And I think that this is important to go ahead and speak about it, because they begin to believe their own excuses. And they literally create an internal narrative, whereas they are always misunderstood, always attacked, always the victim, always the wounded one. Somehow they got screwed buying their house. Can you imagine? Their inspector did everything wrong and this. I mean, I understand shit happens, but you can't, there has to come a time where, right, you have to take responsibility for it, right? I mean, even if you hire an inspector to come to your house, and they come with the ladders and the knee pads and the checklist and everything, like what I do is, I want to be out there. I want to see what's going on and what's happening, and walk around with them and say, well, what's that right there? And then, they write everything down, and some people just let I like to see what's going on. I'm kind of one of those people. So, but you have to, even if you hire somebody, you're still responsible for the report. If you're going to buy a home, or you're going to buy a business, or, anything, your taxes, you're still going to look over your taxes after, the company does it. You're not just going to be blindsided and not look over, right? So you can't be wounded all the time. And that narrative becomes a substitute for real growth, for them to really grow as a mature adult. This is why, once again, you explain this to your children, because real growth requires discomfort. It's kind of like when the kids start your child gets, D's and F's. You have to understand, right? You have to sit with them. And it requires also humility. And it requires the willingness to say, I was wrong, and I'm going to make that change, or I'm going to change that right now. And you have to do that, because the question is this: why people avoid responsibility? Why is it? And because I think this, it helps to asking the why helps to understand why this begins in the first place. Why does it happen? And people avoid responsibility because responsibility forces you to face emotions like shame, guilt, regret. It's there. Fear of rejection, fear of being seen as bad. That's a big one, I think, and also fear of being like, feeling like maybe they're stupid that they did it. Like when I was managing in my younger years, a lot of people did that. They didn't want to feel stupid. And I said, don't worry about that. Let's talk about it. I mean, we all make mistakes. And also fear of losing the power. Because sometimes what I have found is people like to be superior over other people. And that's their number one goal. And they don't want to lose that power. So they don't want to take the responsibility. And for some people, those emotions are unbearable for them. It's like, I'm never going to say I did that wrong. Because my whole facade just goes away. And I'll be seen. It's kind of like that. And I've seen this numerous times. And so instead of feeling them and moving through them like an adult, they want to get up and escape, walk away. They want to blame. That's it. That to me is the number one. They want to blame it and put it right back on to you or to the group or whatever. They want to deflect, attack, and also pretend it didn't happen. They want to rationalize, because responsibility is it's sort of the way I look at it, like that inner death, that where you kind of like, good God, I got to face this. This person's pointing it out to me. They have the balls to actually, because most people don't want to walk on it. They want to walk away because they don't want to rock it, right? They don't want to rock the boat. So they let it pass. But you can't allow that. It kills the false self. It does. And it kills the ego story. And it kills like the I'm always right identity when you confront. And I believe that death is the gateway to wisdom, because it to me, it feels, you feel, if you've ever been in this scenario, any of you that are listening to this, you feel like you have, like, everything got shaken up. And you're like, and then there's that light that pops out. And you're like, okay, this is good. This is good. We're going to talk this through. I mean, in marriages, you have to. This comes up, a lot. So you have to confront it. And most marriages fail, and I hate to say this, is because there is this problem of maturity and responsibility. And you never really get to that wisdom as a beautiful couple, because maybe both are not being responsible or mature and dealing with this, or one isn't, and this happens. And the responsibility is not about self-hatred. And I want to be clear about this, because responsibility is not beating yourself up either. And not beating up the other person, for God's sakes, like your husband, let's say, or your wife. You talk about it, but you don't have to, did you? And you know, those people that they'll repeat it for the next week. Remember when you, so responsibility is not living in guilt either. It's really about just, it's discussing and being mature to discuss, because real responsibility is actually very powerful, and both parties or both groups will feel it, and it'll feel good. And yeah, maybe it'll sting at the beginning, like, oh my God, are we really going to go down this road? Oh, this isn't the day I want to do it. And you're like, yeah, we're going to go down this road. And it sounds like, you know what? I'm a human being. And I made a mistake. And I'm going to own it. I'm going to learn from this, and I'm going to repair it. That's strength. And it's sovereignty too. And that's what maturity is. And what I've noticed in that immature, like, people confuse responsibility is with humiliation. There's a sense of that they feel humiliated when the confrontation comes up and you say, okay, we need to talk about that. It's kind of like, a boss, and you're like, I'm getting called into the office, and he's in your, secret, and you're like, oh my God, what's it going to be now? But it's really a benefit. And if you think back to, if this has ever happened to you, which has happened to everybody, confronting this is afterwards, it does feel better. Or maybe you go another direction, right? And I think a lot of the times people think, if I admit I was wrong, I will lose, because they're in that finite versus infinite game. And the finite is for winners and losers, and the infinite game is where everybody benefits. And that's how you want to, when you confront, you want to go into it, not in the finite game, but in the infinite game, where we're going to benefit from this. You know why? Because we're going to discuss it, and it's going to be good. It's going to be powerful. And it's not the childish mindset. You're approaching it as a mature adult, because a mature person knows you don't lose when you admit the truth. You lose when you refuse it. You lose when you refuse to go forward and confront. And that's what I believe. And the difference between the explanation and the excuse, this is how I look at it, that because you're going to go through that, the explanation and the excuse, you will go through that. It's kind of a formula almost, right? And the explanation says this: I can see why I reacted that way. Right? I was triggered. That's another, right? I was afraid, or I was stressed. Because, we do that sometimes, right? And I was carrying pain from maybe a childhood thing, right? And the excuse says this: and therefore, I'm not responsible. I've heard that one before. And a mature person can hold both truths at once. I understand why I did it, and I still take full responsibility for doing it, or doing it to you, or doing this, whatever that is. And this is extremely important, because modern culture is drowning in excuses. I mean, Come on, look at our country. And I'm not like pointing out people, but I mean, that we've kind of come to that point where there's a lot of excuses why we can't do it and what and that. But, you know, we have to look at it and we have to talk about it. And we have turned in, like we've turned everything into this, is the way I look at it, is that I can't help you. It's my trauma. It's my past. It's my brain. It's my chemistry. It's society. We've heard that before, right? And look, yes, those things influence us, but influence is not destiny. And influence is not permission to harm others either. I want to say that too, because if we want a civilization of stable adults, and this is how I look at it, you must have a culture of responsibility. You do. You have to have the culture take responsibility. We have to have our family take responsibility as a unit in a marriage. Our children, if you want them to be respected within and outside, and their goals and who they want to be and whatever their goals are, and also as a family, but also our government, our entire government needs to take responsibility. And responsibility, it creates a wisdom. And this is what I was talking about at the very beginning. Why responsibility equals, at the end of everything, the wisdom. This is where it comes from. Because, like I said, you can be mature, pay your bills, and do everything, you know, abide by the law of, you know, driving law and what have you. But are you growing your wisdom? And I really want to land this speak on this, that responsibility builds wisdom, because every time you tell the truth about yourself, you gain reality contact. You gain self-knowledge. You gain internal clarity. You become more coherent. You become more grounded. And with this coherence comes the wisdom. And when you avoid responsibility, you lose the reality, content around you, people, places, you know, you do. It just goes right on out. And you become fragmented. And your story becomes more important than truth. And this is dangerous too, because you start living in a mental fog where you can always justify pretty much anything. You know those people that are really good at it? I'm not good at it because I have like too much conscious, like where I'm feeling like, you know what, I'm not, no, come on. I'm going to get caught lying. This is how I am, you know, and it's like I'm not going down that road. And once a person can justify anything, they do become dangerous, because that's how harm becomes normal. And we see that now. And that's how evil becomes rationalized. That's how we get the egregores in our culture and in our world, is because people don't want to take responsibility, and it becomes dangerous, and therefore evil becomes rationalized. Oh, well, you know what? Don't worry about that. Keep on going. Do it again and do it again. It'll be all right. And this is where the egregore grows inside of humanity and in the human spirit and soul. We create that evil ourselves within. And we carry that out. No one's doing that to you. No one's forcing you to do something. Nobody is. You're doing it to yourself. And you have to take responsibility for that so that you don't have those horrible, create an egregore inside of you that is hell on earth, right? And I hate to use the demon word, but you know, that little evil little boop, 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 you know. And this is why I believe that it's so important, because that's how people do terrible things and they still feel righteous. It's really unbelievable that they can still feel it. I mean, I don't know. I find it very interesting on a psyche level. I mean, I look at everything that's happening now, and I'm not saying like I'm Mother Teresa or anything. I'm not saying that at all. But we're all watching, and we see things, and it's just not right. And I'm going to say something strong here, because this is how I look at civilization as a whole. I'm not talking about the finite game of winners and losers, and you know, you play the game and you know, there's always going to be a winner and there's always going to be a loser. I don't want that game. I don't want to play that game, because I want civilization to be strong and healthy and vibrant and feel good. And this is what I feel, that a civilization collapses when people can't admit they were wrong. Not just in relationships, but in leadership, in institutions, cultures, and nations. And we've got to face this head on. If no one can say we made a mistake, then mistakes become policy. Mistakes become law. We've watched this. And mistakes become generational suffering. And so, let me give you a very practical framework. A mature person can do these 3 things. And it's easy. So 1, name the behavior. No fog, no spin, no story. Look at yourself. Okay? Examples would be, I threatened you. I lied. I crossed the line. I was cruel. I'm sorry I said that. I don't know. I just don't say, oh, I lost my mind. Okay, maybe you did. But you know what? Say, I'm not going to do it again. I'm not ever going to repeat that. I'm so sorry. You know, you're in a marriage and someone says, I love you one day, and the next day they say, I hate you. And what kind? That's not right. Okay, so number 2, name the impact. Not, I'm sorry you feel that way, but I understand how that affected you. I see how that hurt you. I see what that did. And you're sincere, right? And number 3 is offer repair. Not just words. Because, you know, you can, I mean, I won't get into it. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Stop being sorry and stop doing it. Good Lord. Offer a repair. And it would be like this. Here's what I'll do differently. Here's how I'm going to change. Here's how I'll make it right. And most people can't do the step one, you know. But I'm gonna put this down in the I might just do a video on this and, you know, the steps, because I think this is so important. How do you because you have to have steps to get to this, right? So that you can reverse course, right? Because step one is where the ego panics. You know, God, you know what? Oh my God, how am I gonna, you know? But if you can do these steps, you become more powerful. And this is how I look at it. And not powerful in the way of controlling other people when I say that. Powerful within. Powerful, grounded, in a grounded way, right? The kind of power that makes you feel safe to be around. And you want to be around that person. When somebody is like this, I mean, you know, I haven't met a lot. I mean, I want to be honest. I haven't met a lot of people like this. I know they're out there, and I have some friends that are like that, but very, very few. And they haven't yet become aware that part of being responsible and mature and hiking yourself up to the wisdom, you know, is doing this. It's kind of like when I was in India and the guru said that he was talking about the monks up in Little Lhasa. And he told us that, well, one day they're going to have to come down from the mountain. And this is where you're going to see their wisdom. And they're going to have to go through all of the different people's, you know, because, you know, we know that people are reactive, and let's not lie, people get crazy, right? And they get a little nutty because, you know, they're not aware of their inside. And I thought that was interesting that he said that, because you can't stay on top of the mountain forever. You have to go and live life. And all that meditation, all that learning has to be put into action, right? You have to do this. And all of this that I'm saying, now you take this and you put this and you realize you have to look at yourself, and you have to confront all of it. And when you do it, I will guarantee this, I'll put my life on the line, you will feel 1,000,000,000% better. You will, and people will feel it when they're around you. They will. And so I want to end this with, if you want to grow fast, if you want to become wise, and if you want to evolve spiritually, emotionally, and that you have your psyche in order, start here. Tell the truth about yourself. Not in a shameful way, but in a sovereign way. And you want to ask yourself this: where am I refusing the responsibility? You have to ask, you have to go through these questions, and you have to write down an answer. This is how you're going, and if you have children, you should have them do it now. You put it right, you do it one, you know, afternoon or something, and you write it all down. And you'd say, I want you to write your answer down. Where do you feel you're refusing any responsibility? Well, I didn't take the trash out. Okay, all right. You know, I mean, you know, because kids, you know, but you get them thinking about this. And then the next is, where am I rewriting reality? Am I lying about what happened? And where am I blaming so I don't have to face myself? Where do I need to apologize genuinely? Because maybe there's somebody that you can do that to now. Where do I need to repair something I broke? I did that recently with my ex-husband. And, you know, I'll be honest with you. It felt so good because I broke some of his trust in something that I did, and I felt horrible. And I didn't do it right away, but I did, you know, I told him right the next day, like, because I can't, I'm not one of those people. I know people that are married that they get in a fight with their mate, and they don't talk to him for a week. And I'm like, God, how do you do it? Don't you, you know, I don't even sleep in the same bed with them. I'm like, God, I just couldn't, I'm not like that. I can't go 24 hours in a fight. You know, I have to solve it. That's how I am. And because maturity is not perfection, we know that. And maturity is ownership, and responsibility is not punishment either. It's actually the doorway to your freedom and to their freedom. If you're in a relationship or work or whatever, you have to do. High quality people do this. They do. And they have high functioning relationships, businesses, and they do this. They understand this. But a lot of people don't understand this. And it's also the doorway to the wisdom. And that's really the goal. Not just to pay your bills and be responsible. I mean, that's good. Trust me. You don't, you know. But you want to also grow and get deep within the wisdom, right? And I truly believe that if humans did this, we would change the world. We would, not Washington, D.C., for God's sakes. We would change it because we have the power. And the world, because I believe this, because the world isn't healed by people who are always right. They're not. It just doesn't work that way. It's healed by people who are brave enough to be honest. And that is how it works. Brave enough to be honest. And the question is where do you think the maturity crisis shows in your relationships, your parenting, your leadership, your culture, and inside ourselves? And these are deep questions. And this should be like in every office in our government, and up on the refrigerator, in our relationships, in our friendships. And I think that we keep our heart strong, we keep our mind clear, we keep walking towards truth, because truth is what makes us free. I do believe that. And I want to thank everybody for being here and listening. And I hope, you know, if you haven't yet joined, like it, or press the subscribe button. And I will see you at the next video. Thanks, everyone.